Hi class! So welcome back to this subject. So again, we are taking up Introduction to Psychology, and right now we are going to have another new lesson, and that is Psychology, the Science of Behavior and Mental Processes, Part 2. So in our previous lesson, we had the Part 1 where we had the introduction of the psychology, the definition itself, and now we are going to have or continue this lesson with Part 2. So to have an overview of the topic that we will be discussing today, in this presentation, we will introduce to you the science of psychology, historical background, and the different school of thoughts and its branches. Now let's go to the topic objectives. So after the end of this presentation, you should be able to, first, trace the development of psychology as a science, and second, identify the pioneers and conclude on the relevance of their contributions. Now let's go and start with the school of thoughts of psychology. So when we say the school of thoughts of psychology, is this wherein the different ways how that the psychology was conceptualized in the past, or what are the different thoughts coming from the different pioneers, and how is psychology is being understood before. Now, it has actually 5 school of thoughts before. We have 5 school of thoughts. Now, let's go to it one by one. So, the first one is Structuralism with Wood and Titchener. So, in Structuralism, in here, it focuses on the analysis of the conscious experiences and into its basic elements. So, like what I've mentioned in our previous lesson, we have the behavior can be measured, or can be, it can be measured that is through the conscious and the unconscious. So the conscious one is the awareness, and the unconscious one is not in our awareness. But in here, in Structuralism, in here, we're focusing on the behavior that is in conscious, or that is in the awareness. And we in here in Structuralism, in here we analyze the experiences and its basic elements. So in here in Structuralism, introspection is also being done. So what is introspection? Introspection is the observation of oneself. So when you're going to look at what structuralism is all about, first, it focuses on the consciousness, and second, it is focused on observation of your own self, or of yourself. So in here, one of the basic tenets, or the basic understanding in structuralism, that in structuralism, from its root word structure, structuralism focuses on the structure of our brain and how it affects our observable behavior. So that's why we are connotating in here or the importance of the consciousness, because it's on the awareness. So that is the focus of structuralism by Wooden and Titchener. Next one is functionalism. So it is here very specialized by James, Dewey, and Carr. So these 3 is actually the ones who conceptualized the idea of functionalism. So in functionalism, this is just the reaction to the theories of the structuralism school of thoughts. So in functionalism, from its root word function, in here behavior was conceptualized due to the function of the structures. Like previously like in our previous slide that I've mentioned, that structuralism, in here behavior or psychology is being understood via the structure of our brain. In here, functionalism, the behavior is being understood by its function. So that's what actually functionalism is all about. So that's what James, Dewey, and Carr are also emphasizing. That's why also this is just a reaction to the structuralism school of thought. Next one is behaviorism, the very famous one. So behaviorism is very famous because it's one of the dominant school of thought. So in here, behavior can be explained by environmental causes rather than by internal forces, and it focuses on the observable behavior. In behaviorism, it focuses on what can be observed and what does the environment do to our behavior, and how our behavior was affected by the environment. So that's what actually behaviorism is all about. So from its root word, behavior, so in here, behaviorism focuses on what's observable behavior and what does the environment tells about the behavior of the person. So for example, you were raised in a community where everyone is very nice and very religious. And here, behaviorism entails that you might have in the future, if you grow up, there's a lot of a higher chance of probability that you yourself will also be religious. So that's what behaviorism is all about. Next one is psychoanalysis. So psychoanalysis, this is a very famous next to behaviorism. So psychoanalysis was conceptualized by Freud, Jung, and Erikson. So psychoanalysis in here, this is one of the school of thoughts that psychology majors nowadays are focusing on. So we have here Freud, which is very famous on his psychosexual, Jung in analytic psychology, and Erikson and his psychosocial development. So again, that's Freud, psychosexual, Jung, analytic, and Erikson with psychosocial. So in psychoanalysis rather, in here we focuses on the unconscious mind. So like what I've mentioned in my previous slide, or I mean in my previous presentation, is that we have the conscious and the unconscious, right, in our behavior. In here, it focuses on the things that are not being seen and how it affects our behavior. In psychoanalysis, we believe there are three elements of the mind. That is the id, which focuses on the pleasure, ego, that mediates between id and the superego, and then lastly is the superego, which is the moral principle. Again, in here in psychoanalysis, we focuses on the three elements of the mind: the id, which pleasure, ego, which mediates the id and the superego, and the superego, which is the moral principle. So just to give you an example on how the id, ego, and superego works is, I keep on giving this an example, is there is, if for example, you're thirsty. So if you're thirsty, the first thing that comes into your mind was to look for water, and that will give you pleasure at that time. So that pleasure feeling that you wanted water is what we call the id. While the ego is the one that tells you, hold on, wait for a second. And the superego will tell you, like this, the superego conversation in the mind would look like this. Wait, hold on, maybe someone owns that water that you wanted to drink, so hold on for a moment. So don't do anything yet. So again, id, the pleasure, you want water. The superego will tell you, hold on, maybe someone else owns that water that you wanted to drink due to your pleasure, due to your desire to relieve that pleasure of thirst. So hold on for a second. And then the ego in here is the one who mediates the id and the superego. So in simple terms, the id, pleasure, ego mediates, superego is the moral principle. So that's what psychoanalysis is all about. So this is one of the famous ones that is very much evident nowadays among psychology majors as well, and in other fields as well. So psychoanalysis. The next one is what we call the Gestalt psychology. So what Gestalt psychology is became famous because of these three pioneers, which is what I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. Wertheimer, Kafka, and Kohler. Okay, so in here, experience is unified wholes, or the whole is the sum of its parts. So in here, Gestalt psychology just entails you that everything in our behavior is dependent on one part of our body, and because of that, the rest will be a part of it, or the rest will also be, yes, part of it. So in simple terms in here, unified whole. So Gestalt psychology, you're just focusing on your whole self. Okay, so if I remembered it correctly, it goes like this: the sum of its parts. What is the sum of its parts? Just like that. So a small area of your body will affect the whole of your body. It's just like that. So that's just a simple explanation of what is the Gestalt psychology is all about. So that is again the five school of thoughts in psychology. So before we go to the 10 branches of psychology, let's go back again to the 5 school of thoughts. So the first one, we have the Structuralism, followed by the Functionalism, followed by Behaviorism, Psychoanalysis, and Gestalt. So now let's go to the 10 branches of psychology. So psychology is very broad. It has a lot of branches because again, psychology focuses on behavior and the mind and then the mental processes as well. So it has a lot of branches. Now let's go to it one by one. So the first one is abnormal or clinical psychology. In here, abnormal or clinical psychology focuses on the abnormal behavior and also the mental disorders. So those who have abnormal behavior are deviant in our society nowadays. So they are the ones that isolates. They have different kinds of different behavior than the norm or the average among the average of people. So this is the abnormal behavior. Mental disorders, these are the people who were diagnosed with the use of DSM-5-ER and also with diagnosed by the psychiatrist or the psychologist. So that is the first branch, abnormal or clinical psychology. So the next one is the behavioral psychology. So the behavioral psychology, in here we focus on behaviorism, which again focuses on the conscious part of behavior, followed by the classical conditioning, operant conditioning, reinforcement schedules, applied behavioral analysis as well. So I will not go to it one by one because we will be having another lesson for this one. So I will not go through with that. Next one, we have the biopsychology. So the biopsychology focuses on the biological aspect and how it affects our behavior. So we are going to talk about here the neurons, the nervous system, and an endocrine system, and the structure of the neurons. So neurons is actually the smallest unit in our brain and how it affects, or the central nervous system rather, and how it affects our behavior. Next, we have the cognitive psychology. In cognitive psychology, in here we focuses on motivation, problem solving, decision making, thinking, attention, and mental processes. We also focuses here in memory, intelligence, and motivation. So as you can see, this is more on the aspect on how our behavior or our biological aspects affect the external behavior that we have. So it is different to biopsychology because in here it's more on the cognitive processes of our brain. Next, we have developmental psychology. Developmental psychology focuses on development lifespan, or the development through the lifespan of an individual. So it started with the prenatal to old age stages of development and also the developmental tasks. So in here, we are going to understand the different kinds of developmental milestones that an individual goes through and how it affects their behavior. Next, we have the educational or school psychology. In here, it focuses on the school setting, the teaching, the educational issues, and student concerns. Careers in school psychology, Jung and learning styles, and the multiple intelligence. So in here, it focuses on everything about the school setting and everything about education and how this behavior affects the education and the education affects the behavior. The next one is experimental psychology. In here, it focuses more on the experiment. It uses scientific method. So scientific method was explained to you guys before on our previous lesson. And then we are in here in experimental psychology, it also utilizes the research methods, experimental research, psychological research, simple experiments, and correlational studies. So in here, it's basically on the experiment per se. And then we have the personality psychology. In here, it focuses on the person itself, himself rather. So personality psychology focuses on how the personality is perceived via the theories of personality and the different disorders of the personality. So that is theories of personality. Next, we have the social psychology. Social psychology, in here, everything or the behavior within a social group and how it affects an individual behavior, and thus what an individual behavior affects a social setting as well. So in here, we talk about social behavior, love and attraction, leadership, verbal and nonverbal communication, attribution, altruism, social issues, and group behavior. Next, we have the counseling and counseling psychology, which is the last branch here in our 10 branches of psychology. So in here, counseling psychology focuses on the nature of counseling, theory, research, and practice in counseling, and also the counseling techniques. So basically in here, some of its sub-branches goes on to guidance counselor or the psychotherapy. So that is the counseling psychology. So basically, that's all that we have for this lesson. So we were able to talk about the 5 school of thoughts and the 10 branches of psychology. So I hope you were able to catch up with that, so you can just slow down the video if I'm going too fast. So if you have any questions, please let me know at the comment section down below. So thank you very much for watching, and see you on my next video. Bye.